and welcome to Vets Coming Clean, where we ask our guests, what have you seen? I'm Peg the Enforcer, and today Granny had surgery, so my husband, Mike, who's usually our producer, is joining us, and we're interviewing Barbara
Hello,
Butcher.
everybody.
She is known as the author of What the Dead Know. She was a New York City Death Investigator. How are you doing today, Barbara?
Just terrific, thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show. And part of the reason we're doing this show, as I told you before, is because everybody does what they do because what they've seen. And then when they get into their jobs, they see other stuff that makes them do more stuff. So just in general, what have you seen, Barbara?
Well, let's give it some context. I was a death investigator for the Office of Chief Medical Examiner in New York City, which means that I went out to every death, homicides, suicides, accidents, and naturals too. Anything where a person died outside of a hospital or under suspicious circumstances. And I'd work with the police. The scene belonged to them, the body belonged to me. I'd examine the body, do my photos, I'd interview witnesses, and I'd go through the scene so we could find any evidence. And it was a fantastically interesting job. I got to do a little good in the world, got some justice for victims, got some answers for families, and I loved my job with all my heart. However, I have seen children killed by their parents. I've seen an entire family slaughtered where they shot the father, they shot the mother, they shot the 12-year-old. The 3-year-old hid behind the curtains. They didn't see him. 17-year-old, that's the one they were really looking for. It was a drug deal kind of thing. He escaped. But when I got there and saw the footprints of a 3-year-old in his parents' blood running behind that curtain and his little tiny toe prints in blood, I can never get that out of my head. I've seen people lined up and executed. Bang, 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 bang. The last guy beat his pants. Just the fear, the horror of seeing his friends' heads blown off and knowing he's next. And I just remember the sadness of that. It's like a pitiful little sad thing of how somebody felt.
It is. It sounds like a lot of it's crime related and drug related.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Or people making bad choices.
People making bad choices, people working in the wrong profession. Drug dealer is not a good, safe profession. There's no security there. There might be money, but your life is cut so short that you don't get a chance to spend it and have fun.
They're always in danger from when I worked in law enforcement. From people I met that were doing that, they were always in fear mode, always worried.
Yeah.
And now I understand why.
It's a hell of a way to live, because part of the business is that you kill your competitors especially if they cross the geographic line of whose territory is whose. And then besides the crimes, which are hideous, probably the worst of that was meeting serial killers. The guy who had raped and killed little girls for 10 years, he got away with it. Little teenage girls.
I read that in the book, and I was just amazed the guts, the courage it takes to go in and do what you had to do. I was kept on the edge of my seat, literally. Could not put the book down. Mike would drive me to appointments and stuff, but I'm sitting there in the book. He's like, "What do you read?" And I'm like, "I read the book."
Thank you. I'm glad you couldn't put it down, but I hope it was okay. There's some parts there that get mighty intense,
Oh, it's phenomenal. Growing up reading crime novels and stuff like that, it flows. You're very detail oriented. It's not too graphic, which very much surprised me. I intentionally look for the gore and the grit because I've been down that road myself, and the more the better. But it was just perfect amount that anybody could pick it up and read it and not be horrified by it.
Yeah.
Absolutely marvelous job.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I didn't want it to be gory because I did want people to be able to read it just if they want to read a story of like how women persevere and even shine and rise to the top of a profession that is traditionally it was always a man's job. In fact, a reporter just interviewed me last week, and when I told her what my job was, and she said, well, isn't that a man's job? I said, not any man I know, honey. This is tough shit. You can't just pick up and do this just because you're a guy. Women are strong. Women are real strong. And women are open-minded and less quick to judge. And they make good investigators, I think. I mean, I know plenty of guys who are fantastic investigators, but I think women, I think we
Women
do it.
are incredible investigators. All the women
Yep.
I've met that do it,
Yep.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
in law enforcement, I know being in a man's world, I was often told, you're in a man's world, you've got to prove yourself. Were you ever told that?
Oh, of course. Of course. I'll never forget the first time I went out on a case on my own after training. And detective stopped me at the door and said, yeah, honey, how can I help you? And I said, oh, I'm from the medical examiner's office and I need to examine the body and blah, blah, blah. And he said, no, don't worry about it, honey. Crime scene's got it. They'll take care of it for you. I said, no, 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 I have to do my job. Anyway, that was such bullshit. Next
Right.
time it happened, detective said, yeah, honey, how can I help you? I said, I tell you what, I don't think you can help me, but I can help you because I'm going to go in there. I'm going to examine that body. I'm going to examine the scene. I'm going to tell you what time he died, what he died from, and maybe even who did it. And then when you go to court and they say, well, how do you know all that? You can say, Barbara Butcher told me. How's that? And he said, whoa, okay, come on in.
So let me ask you a deeper question on you didn't go into detail. Did you actually have to do the autopsies themselves as well, or were you just going to the crime scene and doing the analyzing there? I'm still working on breaking down that part of the crime
Yeah.
investigation down.
Right. A forensic pathologist, a medical doctor, does the autopsy, but they can't just drop their knives on the table and run out every time there's another death. So people like me, investigators with a medical background, with investigative training, we go to the scene, do all the examination there, and then with our report and photos for the pathologist, now they have a context for that death. Because they on the exam table, a gunshot wound, just a hole in the head, right?
Right.
But the context is what I get, so they can decide: is it a homicide, a suicide, or an accident? You might not think there's that many gunshot accidents, but my the irony of this young kid bought his first revolver, 32 caliber Saturday night special, cheap piece of garbage, and he's showing it to his friends out on East Houston Street here, and he's spinning it on his finger like a cowboy, and he's cocked the hammer.
Mm.
It flies off his hand, hits the sidewalk on the hammer, and shoots him straight between the eyes. So his first shot was his best shot, was his last shot. And just the foolish damn irony of that whole thing. I write a lot about death by misadventure, death by foolishness, death by doing silly things for fun.
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time. In Arkansas, you hear the term, hold my beer, watch this all the time. And I'm like, oh my God, somebody have 911 on standby. It's never good when people do stuff like that.
It's never ever good. No,
My daddy taught me gun safety at 3 years old for that very reason. He was law enforcement and they had 38 specials. And you don't want to play with something like that because it'll go off.
Yeah. Well, I think also what certainly the crimes, they bothered me a lot, but suicides. Now that's probably the most heartbreaking thing, mainly because there's a way out. there's a way out that doesn't involve dying. There's medication, there's therapy, there's meditation, there's talking to your colleagues, families, and friends and telling it, like we're doing right here today. You got to tell it.
Oh,
Whenever,
absolutely. I tell vets all the time, you don't have to give names or locations or dates. You
Mhm.
just have to tell what you have experienced so that you're not holding on to it anymore. I know when I was holding on to stuff, I got sicker. The longer I held on to it, the sicker I got and the worse it made me. I
Yeah.
mean, and suicide's not the answer because suicide, that's an end all. That doesn't give anybody the chance to help you that might want to help you. You know,
Hmm.
there's people out there that you haven't met yet that could bring joy to your life.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm grateful I've had Mike here with me all by my side through this journey. It's been difficult. We
Mhm.
both have
That was
had,
a long 6 years, wasn't it?
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and something that's very important to recognize is if you are seeking help for depression or something, if for some reason you do become suicidal, tell the doctor that you are, because sometimes some of those medications can cause those exact side effects, and that's what they are, is side effects at that point. It's not you. And
Yeah.
once the doctor fixes the error, which it's a chemical error, am I correct on that?
Absolutely. It's serotonin, dopamine errors of receptors, errors of transmitters. It's
Mm.
just a chemical and it
I
washes
have
your
a question.
brain.
Since you've been an investigator, do you know if they've ever done studies to see if people that die of suicide, if they were on medications or anything, and to see if it's caused an imbalance somewhere in the brain?
They always do a toxicology on a suicide, so you know exactly what drugs they were taking at the moment. But the actual effect on the brain is, to my knowledge, not really something you can study since it's on the neuroreceptor level, which is, once the brain dies, there's no
Right.
neuroreceptors to study. So that's a mighty hard thing. But I just saw something recently about deep brain stimulation um, of they found the region in the brain that's probably responsible for depression, and they're trying things like just stimulating it very lightly with some kind of an electrode. Now, I don't
Well,
love the idea of somebody sticking something in my head. However, I mean, there's a lot of shit in there already, but
something
um,
that the VA gives out for people that are dealing with depression that does brain stimulation is called an alpha stim. And it's
oh,
something that people can get from their doctors, and it just attaches to the earlobes.
yeah,
And what it does is it changes the state of your brain waves. And so if you don't have time to sit and meditate to drop into that beta or theta state or whatever state you're wanting to, you grab
uh-huh,
this and put it on, and it drops you into that state, and it
okay.
helps you. And it can also be used as a training aid to help people learn how to meditate, because once they learn how their brain feels once they've used this enough, then they can drop into meditation and do it anytime. It's actually a marvelous tool.
How can I get that? What's it called?
It's called an alpha stim, ALPHA dash STIM.
Okay.
And it's M microcurrent and cranial electrotherapy stimulator. And the one that the VA orders has these. It has the a mode to put it into TINS unit. Is that what it is, honey? Where you can actually connect it to muscles.
Yeah, you can run hinge unit, or you can run, I think it's gamma, alpha, and theta state on it.
It
Okay.
has
Something like
these
that.
two pins that also it has this part disconnects, and it has this these pin like things that have cotton on the end that you can use to pinpoint areas as well, so
Yeah.
that you can customize it. It's really a very good tool to get and have.
I'm really pleased that the VA is advanced enough to, in their therapeutic modalities, to try things like this outside medications, because there's a whole world of help out there, and some people are just anti-medication. So
Absolutely.
that's something I try definitely.
How many prescriptions can I take? 12, honey. I've developed so many allergies because of the disabilities I had that it got to where I couldn't take medication anymore. And so we had to start looking at alternative holistic methods, such as the alpha stimulator. And once I figured out what I was supposed to be doing in meditation, I did meditation and then yoga, doing activities that don't take a lot of effort or a lot of energy, but it's something to change my brain waves and my thought patterns instead of turning on the TV and just zoning out and disassociating.
Yeah. Oh, I know that one real good. Yeah. Or playing Candy Crush endlessly.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
Candy Crush. My God, I think I'm on level 7,800. But anytime
I had to uninstall it on my phone. It was that addictive. Yes.
yes, very addictive.
We're both avid gamers, and we've actually have quit playing as much once we realized that it was making us disassociate from what was really going on around us. And we have become so much happier, and we get a lot more done, and it's amazing. Let's see, what's Granny saying?
She's got a question. How does she cancel her emotions to deal with the masked bodies at 9/11?
All right. Let me tell that one.
That's
First,
Granny, our co-host. She's
hi,
on
Granny.
Facebook.
Hi, Granny Lisa Craft. How are you, ma'am? Let me just say my impression. Like when you say, "What have you seen?" Okay, you've heard the saying that one death is a tragedy and 1,000 deaths is a statistic. Well, when you're crawling through rubble that's smoking and burning and collapsing beneath you to find little tiny scraps of human remains, and you see a desk calendar that says lunch with Jimmy, 1:00 Tuesday, or the graduation picture of a little kid, going out of fifth grade, or I found a desk set that had the pens in it and a golf ball as a souvenir of a hole-in-one. Now, all those little homey things that are around us when we work, it just hits you smack in the face of this person is a universe. This person has friends and family and kids and husbands and wives and grandparents, and they're a little universe all around them, and they're friends at work, and everything they do, we're all connected, and now they're gone. And it's one person at a time. It can't be a statistic. We can't think, oh, Sri Lanka, there's flooding and earthquakes, 3,000 people dead, and just go, oh, well, that's a shame, huh? Each one of those lives is important. And to somebody and to all of us, eventually, we're all connected. So how do I cancel my emotions? Well, I didn't. When I was doing just straight out death investigations, homicides and stuff, I learned how to detach. Because if I walked in there and see that young woman and her kid shot, what washes over me is a wave of grief and horror and sadness and anger, and it just keeps coming like waves of heat. And I can't do jack shit for that victim. I can't, in order to get justice for that person, in order to get justice for the family, to get answers, I've got to be right on top of my game. Clinical, cool, analytical. I can't be emotional. So I detach completely. I go about my business, and then when I'm all done, then I talk to the family. Now, what I learned, unfortunately, is that you can't just turn off one emotion or two. They all go off. So as I started turning off and becoming more and more detached, the more I saw, my relationships started going to hell, my life, my friendships, everything. It was just falling apart around me. I was angry all the time, irritable, very, very jumpy. And I just was not fun to be around. I was mean because I assumed that they would understand what I was going through. Now, how the hell could they know that when I didn't tell them? And I didn't tell them because it's not fair to pull civilians in and hit them with these horrors. They didn't sign up for this. I did.
Right.
So unless somebody said, yes, you can talk to me, I understand it. And I just didn't talk to anybody.
Well,
And
and when you're
eventually,
working in something like that daily, you don't offer up to talk about your day either. I know I
oh,
didn't.
no, no, definitely not. No.
Mm.
And, specifically at 9/11, I didn't want to go home anymore. Now, we had along 30th Street, right outside the morgue and the medical examiner's office, we had trailers and tents and cargo containers, and we were living in them for the duration of the project of, recovering every remain we could and starting the identification process. And there we had Salvation Army feeding us, giving us warm socks and dry sweatshirts, and um, we could talk to each other. We could laugh, and we did. We laughed all day. Um, we could understand each other. Then I go home, then my partner was complaining, why don't you never home for dinner? Why don't you come home? I'd say, all right, all right. Take me 2.5 hours to drive home to a plate of cold spaghetti. The family's all watching TV. And then I get questions like, you know, we really need to go on a vacation. You have to start thinking of somewhere. Where can we start researching where you want to go? Or, you know what, this kitchen, I can't stand this color anymore. We got to paint this. What the hell are you talking about? Do you have any idea what I saw today? And you
No
want me to pick
compassion.
out a color for the kitchen? you know? So I stopped. I just didn't want to go home. What's the point?
Right.
And that relationship ended, of course. It's a damn
It,
shame. But
it makes it difficult. That's one reason I think that people should talk more and be more open, because when you go to a place and work in a place and you can't talk about what you see, and then your loved ones at home don't even think about how bad your day could have been, and then load
mhm,
more on top of you, it really can start bogging you down. And all you do is start reacting and responding instead of stopping and thinking. And that
yeah,
it adds up on
yeah,
everybody over time, not being able to talk about what you do openly, and it hurts.
it does. It does. You start to feel dirty inside,
Like
holding
you've
all
done
those
something
secrets.
wrong. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's not, honestly, it's not your secrets to hold, but you're forced to hold them because it's your job,
that's
because
right.
you don't want to bring suffering on others. I
Yeah,
know I would have a hard time doing what you did and not following every case I worked on to see through that justice was served. Did that ever
mm.
bother you?
Oh, absolutely. When I started out on the job, I think it was 1992. We were getting 2,400 homicides a year. 2,400 in New York City. Now, if we get 400, everybody freaks out. And so I was getting them every single day, one after the other. And the wheels of justice turn very, very slowly. They don't even get to court for 18 months, a year. And they were piling up on me, and they were one after the other. So I had no idea what the hell was going on. And then I'd run into one of the guys, one of the cops, and he'd say, "Hey, Barbara, remember that one we did on 38th Street? Yeah, yeah, they put him away." I'd be like, "Okay, good. Which one was that?" "Hey, the guy who shot his mother." "Oh, no, we had three of those. Which one?" I
Right.
mean, that's how
Wow.
crazy it was.
It had to make it hard to testify in court because, like you said, it'd be 18 months or longer before it finally went to trial. And then you have to open those old wounds all over again and
Oh,
go
yeah.
back to what you saw, and revisit again in court and in
Yeah.
front of strangers that you don't know, and give testimony. That takes a lot of courage.
I'll tell you though, I love testifying in court. Now, I kept extremely good notes, and my photos, my notes, my reports were impeccable. So I could tell you every single thing that happened in the scene, even though my mind was from 2 years ago. I could go through my work. And being in court, I mean, the first time was awful because you have to get used to those defense attorneys battering you. "Why, Miss Butcher, you're not even a doctor, are you? And what are you, an expert on smells?" Stuff like that.
They try to discredit you. Everything you say, they
Yeah,
try to twist, and it makes it very frustrating and
it
irritating
sure
when you just
does.
try to do your job.
It sure does.
I think
And
Granny's got another question, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Do you feel like you made a difference in working that site and giving back loved ones?
Wow. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just say, oh, yes, it was wonderful? I just don't know. I just don't know. I feel like my whole job, I did make a difference. I got answers for people, and in some cases, I got justice. I think that was a big thing. Now, I don't know if you're aware that of the nearly 3,000 victims, we had more than 22,000 remains, pieces
That's what
of
I was going
human
to ask you
remains.
about. Statistically, how do you put that all back together again to identify everybody?
Well, only 60% of the victims have been identified to date. Now, that's nearly 22 years now, right? Is it 20? Yes, it's
Wow.
exactly 22 years. And only 60% identified. However, just a week and a half ago, 2 more people were identified. Now, we're talking about tiny little remains that have been tested over and over and over again. But a new DNA technology was just, developed. A new way to replicate and multiply the alleles, and I don't know how that language, but yeah, a new DNA modality finally identified 2 more people. And we had made a commitment back then that we will do whatever it takes for as long as it takes until every single person's identified. Now, on the realistic side of life, yes, they keep doing it, they're going to do it. But the forces that were involved that day were so overwhelming that a lot of those folks were completely vaporized, and there's just nothing to test. So, uh,
And doesn't the organic material degrade over time?
yes, but we have it preserved. They developed a new process. It's sort of like a mummification, where the tissues were dried and vacuum sealed so that they didn't rot any further. So they'll last, at least I've been told it could be as much as 100 years. So I think that's pretty damn good. But so yes, did I make a difference? I made a difference in for some families. Yeah, maybe I got the right clue that helped us identify somebody. Maybe I recovered just the right piece of human remains that we could identify. So yeah, maybe I helped, but damn, it sure was a rough time. It
But
lingers still.
do you have issues breathing from being down there with all the dust and everything? I know that took a long time for all that to clear.
No, some sinusitis from that and some GERD. About more than half of the workers down there, we developed GERD, and they think it's possibly from all the chemicals we swallowed, because that air was disgusting. And then along comes that Christy Todd Whitman. She says, "Oh, no, 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 it's good. You can work here. You're safe. You're safe here. We've tested the air and it's okay." Really? Oh, in a week you tested this air and you think it's okay? So
That and with
no,
fire still burning, I don't see how it was safe
no, the fires burned until
for,
December, until just
for
before
3 months.
Christmas. Underground fires,
Wow.
burning all these metal and plastics. And save my ass. How could you say a thing like that and sleep at night? You know?
It's almost as if I know for natural disasters I was involved in and stuff. It's like you're going to a war zone every time you go to a scene like
Mm.
that. I know I was on call for Katrina when that happened, and I was in England before the bombings, and was glad I
Oh, were
wasn't
you
there when
in?
that happened. I was there 3 months before and went through the turnstiles, and it was a shocker. And then I was in Gulfport 3 months before Katrina hit,
No
and
kidding.
no kidding,
Wow.
close. And then I got for Katrina, I was actually in Hot Springs visiting my cousin who was a Marine because they evacuated them up to Hot Springs from New Orleans. And then I get the call, "Why are you not in town?" Well, I'm visiting family that evacuated. I'm making sure you got safe, sir, blah, blah, blah. Well, get your blah, blah, blah. Katrina's happened. You've been recalled. Oh, shit.
Wow.
So luckily, I lucked out and I was supposed to be on a C-130 as law enforcement, military police, and our plane was the last one to leave Little Rock, and we got the call as I was heading to the tarmac to head out, and they said they didn't need us. But I heard that some of those people they didn't use the latrine on the planes. They just went where they were. And the smell was on the plane for months afterwards. And the guys that went down there on my unit had to sleep on the streets and told me about the conditions and showed me pictures. And I was just like, oh my God.
That was a shit show. It really was.
It is. It really is. You think by now we have a good emergency management plans with all the natural disasters and stuff that we've encountered.
Nope. Because it's under the Health and Human Services, this part, and then this other part is under, Department of Defense, and this is splintered. The response to a disaster is splintered. And the mortuary part, it's just too messed up. Now, there's a guy that worked for me back in the day who was the master of mass fatality management and disaster planning. This guy, Frank DiPaolo, is an absolute genius. And he's retiring out of the medical examiner's office now. And damn, if there's anyone that should be head of that on a federal level, he's the one. This guy knows how to do things. And he doesn't just write the plans, he does the thing, And Katrina, when that was happening, I was over in Norway speaking at a conference where we were trying to help African nations and a bunch of other countries develop disaster plans for mostly natural disasters. And the first question I got when I was speaking at this conference was, excuse me, but on television, we're seeing that in the hurricane, people are crying out for water and their bodies, they're floating on houses. And this can't be true. That's America. That's not true, right? It's just propaganda. I said, no, I'm really sorry, but it's true. We dropped the ball on this one. And, there's people who are in big trouble. And excuse me.
Absolutely. All the way up in here in Arkansas, my husband, one of his dogs he had was a victim from Katrina. And how did she survive, Mike?
They actually picked her up. There was actually animal rescue people down there doing that. And they literally, I forgot, it was several hundred dogs they brought up to Arkansas for adoption. So,
yeah.
And she was a little puppy. She'd been living outside in the middle of all that.
No.
So.
Yeah, it wasn't until an admiral, I can't remember his name now, till he was asked to, that guy Brown was kicked out, and they put in this admiral and said, take care of this thing. And he roped everybody into shape. It needed a military leader because there were so many different groups, and the hell's his name?
The separation is causing degradation is what I've noticed. The more we try to separate and compartmentalize, if I can speak correctly, things, the more the system is degrading from my outward appearance and my experience. Have you had that same experience?
Yeah, I see things, I see things getting better on a local level, like New York City. I mean, they're doing enormous work on disaster management, on therapy for first responders and last responders like us. And then I see that spreading to other cities around the country. LA is doing wonderful things, and Las Vegas. But on a big grand scale, on a federal level, no. Oh, look at that. What's going on? I mean, we couldn't find our own asses with both hands in the dark with a flashlight and a map. It's just everything is messed up on a federal level.
I've noticed that working with the VAC, the Veterans Action Council, I'm wanting to help in multiple areas, and they're like, but we have different lobbying groups for those areas, and I'm like, why are there different lobbying groups when your things cross over? If you just look deep enough into the issues you're facing, everything's interconnected.
Yep. It's really difficult to, you know what, especially if you look at the death investigation system in the United States, half of it is coroners, elected coroners. Now, you can be a coroner in upstate New York. There's a county or two up there where all you need is a driver's license, to be 18 years old, and have a high school diploma, and you can be elected coroner. That means you'll go out and investigate deaths, work with the police, and they tell them, well, get some training within a year. Well, how the hell do you monitor that? The other half of the country, or a little less than half, is under a medical examiner system, forensic pathologists who lead the offices and have investigators with experience. Now, many coroners are very well experienced. I know some terrific folks, like Las Vegas and LA are coroner systems, but they use medical doctors, forensic pathologists to do the autopsies, and experienced investigators. But then you go out to, South Dakota somewhere, and you don't know who the hell's going to show up at your death scene. A 19-year-old? I don't know. So we don't have a central protocol for death investigation in the United States. Some local levels are great, some suck. So you can go certain places in this country and get away with murder absolutely without a problem. And knowing that
departments aren't interconnected like you would think they are either. Am I wrong about that? Does that make it difficult?
It sure does. It's difficult because you take things like missing persons.
Mm-hmm.
In this country, every year, nearly 100,000 people go missing. Now, most of them get found, but there's a huge number, I'm talking tens of thousands, who never get found. At the same time, in coroners and medical examiners' offices across the country, we have between 45 and 50 or 60,000 unidentified bodies, unidentified and unclaimed. Do the math. What missing persons, unidentified persons? Let's put that together, right?
Right.
Well, that would sound very logical, and you and I would have that set up in about a week and a half, right? And funded too. But no, because some police departments, you can't report a person missing where they went missing. You have to do it in the precinct where they lived. Some departments won't take a report for 24 hours. And that's a critical 24 hours.
Very critical.
Yeah, very, right? Especially when it's a young person.
Yes.
And this, this goes on all the time. And this is something this is my next project, my next soapbox to get up on, is the crisis of missing persons and unclaimed persons in this country. There's no systematic nationwide thing to do. And I don't know if that can ever be fixed, because the nature of our country is that we are states, we are locals, and we are federals. And it seems like nobody's working together like they should be. Anyway, there I am on another soapbox.
Well, let me ask you, so with all those unclaimed bodies, do they have different areas? Depends on what they do with those unclaimed bodies, isn't it?
It sure does. In New York, we bury them in Potter's Field. There's more than 1 million people on a little island called Hart Island. Some jurisdictions, they cremate them. Now, there is a system called NAMUS, National Association of Medical Examiners, Unidentified Persons. NAMUS was, yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Did we just stop?
Everything froze.
Uh-oh.
Is it us?
You're both frozen. I can see me moving.
There we are.
Okay. There you go.
We're back. We were having internet problems.
Ah, okay. The NAMUS system enables law enforcement and medical examiners to enter data and photos of unclaimed and unidentified bodies. And families can go into NAMUS also and put in who they're missing. And hopefully there's a match in the middle. But not enough people know about it because it's privately developed and privately run. It should be a central government project, but it doesn't really quite work that way. Government kind of runs it, kind of doesn't.
Name us, is it the word name and then us as in U.S.?
It's NAMUS.
Okay.
it's missing persons, unidentified persons, and I mean that's a great place. If a family can't find somebody, they love one of their friend, or you can go into NamUs and actually search that group, and you can enter data on who you're missing, and it might come up a match, which is fantastic. They've found people after 20 years. Turned out they were dead 20 years ago, and nobody knew about it.
Oh, wow.
Hmm. Now, why does this stuff make me so angry?
It's because we see where the problems are and we want them fixed, but don't know who to talk to get them fixed. Perhaps that's been my issue.
Yeah,
The
that's
one that
right.
really shocked me is the National Park Service and how many people go missing there and they never even
Hmm.
try to look for them.
Yep.
It's
Too much rugged territory. But
Well,
like I said, each person is a universe. Each person is important. We're all connected. And I think part of my anger, and Peggy, you might relate to this, is I know that after 9/11, I got very angry all the time because my work was completely turned upside down. My home life, my country, my city, our sense of safety in the world. As Americans, we think of ourselves as invincible. We're strong. No one would dare attack us. We can take care of business.
the melting
But
pot of the world. That's
yeah,
what I tell people. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. And then to have everything happen and just it ruined my sense of safety. It made me angry. And when I
I
see
think it did
these,
a lot of Americans.
yeah, a lot of us got real pissed off. Yeah. And then COVID didn't help. Now that just threw some icing on our cake, didn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But I have to say that the things I've seen, yes, they made me very angry, very upset, very emotionally detached. But I have also learned a great deal from the people whose lives I've investigated. I'm a nosy person. I have to figure things out. I got to know what happened. I got to know why, who did what. And I got to see not just how people died, but how they live. And in New York City now, there's an infinite variety. I could be in a Fifth Avenue penthouse in the sky filled with art and antique furniture. I'd be there to see some poor old lady who died alone, lonely, with nothing but money to keep her warm. And then half an hour later, I'd be crawling beneath a squatter building that was abandoned to find some poor drug addict who'd overdosed in a pile of trash. Or my favorite place to live is the caves beneath New York. We have abandoned railroad tunnels and tracks. And if you go under the bedrock of the city, there's little caves. And I've seen people furnish them. They have beds with bedspreads on them and pillows and bookcases full of books and a little table and candlelight because there's no electricity, of course.
Right.
And, I see all this stuff and like, wow, there's a society down here of people who live in a cave. That's it.
Not just surviving, but thriving. I bet they're happy, finding happiness in what they're doing and how they're living because they're still
Yeah.
alive.
They're free. They're off the grid. And they've found a way to make a good life for themselves in their own society. And so, even so many people, I'm sure your listeners have been through hell, have seen hellish things. But I wonder if we start to look a little deeper. Is there something to be learned from everything we've seen? Is there something we can do about it? Well, for number one would be taking care of ourselves, right? That would be number one in my book. If you've seen a lot of shit, first take care of yourself. Like they say on the airplane, if we lose that cabin pressure and you have a kid, put it on your own face first, then take care of the next person. Because you're no good to anybody if you can't take care of yourself, right?
I imagine you have a lot of deaths that come in because of that very reason. People are so worried about taking care of everybody else. They try to save other people instead of themselves, and they and the other person they're trying to save die.
Yep.
You got to take care of yourself first. And
Hmm.
that way you can take care of others and help others.
Yep. Yep.
Absolutely, totally agree with you. It's
Yeah. You have to build your emotional strength, your mental strength to keep on and to enjoy life. You know, we get one shot, might as well have a good time at it.
oh, absolutely. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for spending all this time with us, Barbara.
Oh,
Is
you're
there
so
anything
welcome.
you're looking forward to coming up? I know I saw you got a book tour coming up.
No, I'm pretty much done now. I've got 2 events in Massachusetts, something coming up in Connecticut, but, besides the book, what I'm looking forward to is at the end of this year, Dick Wolf is doing a show on Netflix about major crimes in major cities, and, I'm featured in 5 of those episodes. So I'm looking
Awesome.
forward to that. I don't know what the name of
Yeah.
the show is. It's not named yet, but um, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to perhaps doing a show on missing persons in America. So there's more to be done.
Oh,
Mm.
always, always. I know working in law enforcement, a lot of people don't realize the things that they see on a daily basis, but they're there to help you. And if you're in an abusive situation and you see a police officer, go talk to them. They will
Yeah.
protect you. I've met so many women that are scared to leave because they've been told, if you leave, I'll find you. It,
Hmm.
it's not worth it. Your children's lives are not worth it. I know so many women that stay because they don't think they can find better. We have government services that'll assist women and children and battered men as well. I'm finding services that help battered men too that are in abusive situations. That's
Absolutely.
I learned to tell people, if you see something, say something, because in law enforcement we got as many eyewitness statements as possible because everybody's perceptions, everybody's triggered by different things. So when you go and get witness testimonies, everybody has a different eyewitness statement to give. And that's why your job was so crucial for law enforcement, to be able to get the perpetrators and solve the crimes,
Yep.
is because people see things differently.
Yep. Absolutely. And I'm proud of the work I did. You know, it left me scarred, but with a little help, actually with a lot of help, if the truth be known, I'm enjoying my life and just keep on working.
Very admirable the job you did, Barbara. You helped a lot of people and touched a lot of lives. I mean, just reading your book and hearing about the things you did, I know for a fact you helped a lot of families find closure. Thank you so very much for that. I know it wasn't easy doing that.
Thank you.
Do you plan on writing another book about any of your other adventures or your stories?
Yeah, yeah, I'm planning on something else because I had to cut it down to keep it down to a readable length. I got 5,500 cases, that I could talk about, but I had to,
Wow.
carve it down. But there's more to be said. Yeah, you'll hear from me again.
Oh, wonderful. Because I definitely like to have you back on. I know I promised I wouldn't keep you very long because I know you're a very busy woman and you've got a lot to do and a lot on your plate. We're very grateful for having you in. We're talking about having a get together on Zoom the third Saturdays of the month. We're asking people that are knowledgeable, been down the road, mental health, that want to help others to join us on Zoom. Give people a place to come together and start talking about things they've seen. Just give them a place to talk. But we're asking actual volunteers from the mental health community to come as well. So if somebody has a breakdown, there's somebody there to help them. And you don't know who needs help. There's homeless people out there, and a lot of the people I found are homeless because they ended up disabled, and
Yeah.
then the system didn't help them in time, and they didn't have any friends or family, so they ended up homeless because it takes time to get in the system and get that disability.
Yep.
And when you don't have anybody, you don't have anybody. And I think it's important people have a place to go. And so I'd like to invite you as well on the third Saturdays. We're going to post it on Vets Coming
Thank
Clean
you.
when we have the dates posted. That way, people that have been in law enforcement or any career out there have a place to come and talk to others that have experienced the horrors of this world. Because together, I think we can find solutions. Together, we can find healing.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Thank you so much, Peggy. Thank you, Mike. Thank you,
Thank
Granny
you.
Lisa Kraft. And stay safe. Take care of yourselves.
Absolutely. Have a marvelous day, Barbara. And if you like what we're doing, remember to like and subscribe. Always and forever, remember, sharing is caring. Y'all have a marvelous evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.